So I have a panel, if I can show the first page. Yeah. Right, we have myself, I'm from Vertical Farm Institute, I'm the moderator. We have from NASA, Renko Tsui, he is Business Development Manager for TTA, which is a very, best in automation of seed planting, and Renko will tell more. And Mike Fumai is CEO of Bomb Group, which is one of the, one of the biggest horticulture construction turnkey solution company, long active in the horticulture world with worldwide projects. And we have CEO of Vertical Farm Institute, Daniel, who's an architect, trying to bring new building typologies into the growing world. So we will hear the two very different perspectives and then think about, can we learn from each other? Can we bring the two different perspectives together and think about how can we learn from the existing knowledge in the horticulture world already in terms of industrial production, in terms of turnkey solutions, and the optimization to the newcomers of food production, urban farming. So that's the topic today. I will start with Renko. First, tell us what are you doing and what is TTA doing in this topic of industrial scale and optimization.
Thank you, Tiffany, for introducing us. Renko Tsui, business developer, indoor farming at TTA. At TTA, indoor farming consists of any closed system growing, whether it's horizontal or vertical. In a nutshell, we are well known about our equipment for handling and selecting of plants. In terms of vertical farming, indoor farming, we take a next step and fully integrate complete automation for vertical farms. Sorry. We dream of a world where sufficient and healthy food is available for everyone. That's a big goal, and together with the industry, we're positively sure that we can manage that if we do it in a sensible way. Why this is a concern for us, that's we don't need to discuss that now. That's everybody knows what the challenges are that we have to face as a world, and how we want to do that. With TTA, it's not a goal to automate; it's efficiency is. So, and by reaching efficiency, you have to start automating things. And in our perspective, you do that with scalability, repeating of existing methods that already have proven themselves. So with sensible and well thought out automation, we will do that. Use lessons learned from the horticultural industry, so because that's per definition an industry where standardization and scalability is reached a long time ago already, and we are positive sure that we can adapt those two industries together. How we do that, there's a you can see a little bit of what we do, and then I'll give the word to Daniel, I think. Yeah. Yes. Yep.
So this you are using machine learning, right? Basically, already for a long time.
Yeah. This is techniques to be adapted from the horticulture industry into vertical farming. And like I said, we take a next step in vertical farming because we can implement turnkey solutions for the automation area of a vertical farm. So in terms of a seeding line, a transplanting line, harvesting, washing, and that whole loop we can cover with our automation. So we're both machine manufacturers as system integrators in that field.
So you're used to a large-scale horticulture project, with a large forestry project, with millions of seedlings being planted every year by a big nursery. But in the vertical farming world, a lot of the time you're also starting small. So yes. How do you see that?
We see a lot of them starting small, and it's we like to be next to them at the table as a partner to, even if they don't use automation yet, to keep it in mind designing their operation. Because if you limit yourself in using certain propagation trays, using certain systems, you limit yourself for future steps. When you want to scale up, you notice, okay, this is hard to automate. And in our view, automation is key in making vertical farming profitable, but also doing what we think is necessary, feeding the world.
Yes, thank you. Of course, then we'll come back to the question is, where are we with this automation in a vertical farming world, which has a lot to do. So in just an hour ago at the vision stage, we just had a discussion with project developers, who are the kind of newcomers to the food world, trying to incorporate sustainable urban production, food production with urban infrastructure. So you start to see new investors, whether big retail company or property developers, completely with not a lot of knowledge into food production, are starting to invest in multifunctional use, at least as a dream, to realize kind of a circular flows. You see also a lot of developers are chasing and looking for good projects, because with the new EU taxonomy, with the regulation, earning money can no longer be the number one priority. They will start losing the license to operate, basically. So they need to show what are they doing, how they're contributing to the EU green goals. So we see those regulatory pressure, but also consumer demand are driving investment very much. But that means also very different kind of way to look at food production, even look at different motives. Why do you grow food? So I gave now the floor to Daniel, who's been studying and understanding how do you incorporate food production as a structural element in urban areas, and that ranging from small scale also to large scale, but that's a lot of course, challenges. So Daniel.
Thank you. So, as Tiffany said, I'm coming from the architectural side, and the big question, and therefore I'm curious about the podium discussion, is that if it comes into building, or if it comes to urban designs, you have different circumstances. For instance, you have different industrial elements, you have different raster systems, etc., etc. If I'm coming up, for instance, I'm talking about that building, which is an old investors project. It's an office building, no longer in use, low energy standards, and the building owners actually have to tear that down and rebuild it in order to meet future energy standards. And that's where we sometimes come into play. If somebody asks us, but can we refurbish that, and can't we activate that space for food production? And of course, we have a closer look on the building. We're starting with our simulation process, getting a deeper understanding in what is the daylight radiation, what is the solar potential of the building, but at the very end of the day, what is the consistency of the structure of the building itself? So which floors, which spaces could be activated for food production, whether it's leafy greens, I don't care now, microgreens, fish production, etc. Or from the other side, this is a mixed-use building, so the only thing what you don't see here is the mixed use. So it's office, restoration, and in the center of it there is a monovolume was concepted as greenhouse, and the clients asked us which cultivation or production methods could be thinkable in order to activate that greenhouse. Very limited solar radiation, and that was the proposal from our side, that it's actually a combination of 3 different production methods, very small greenhouse with perhaps the most expensive tomatoes in that city, and in the south of it you have your paternoster system for lettuce production, and you have your closed entities fully artificially lit. Another example, which was more an art project, but seriously meant in giving a developer an idea in which production methods do we already know. Yeah. For instance, if you see that tower, this is a reference to one of the oldest vertical farms. One is still existing from 1974 in Vienna. It was a Rudner company. Don't talk about the effectiveness or efficiency of that, but just sensing or opening the discussion which surfaces, which spaces actually could be activated for food production. And another example, this of course is always the big goal of an architect, thinking about what is the new building typology of the 21st century. And by the end of the day, if we are talking about a vertical farm, it has to be a multifunctional building. I always say it's the implosion of the whole food supply chain. So it's not just about production, but it's about the whole automation process from the very beginning until marketing. And another topic, what has to be discussed, so in order in bringing, let's say, the horticulture sector together with the urban design or architecture, it's the question of technology readiness level. Well, if we are looking around, my statement always is we do have the solutions, we just have to bring these different elements together. And another issue in the city is, which is always related to the position, so where actually is that building and how big is that volume, which cultivation area do you get out of it, and which business model could fit. And by the end of the day, during the design process, of course, you have to do your simulations, getting a deeper understanding of the building itself, whether you meet the goals, what you actually want to achieve. For instance, the Global Sustainable Development Goals. I don't go into detail of that, don't be afraid of it. We have a huge panel in our booth if you want to have a closer look at it, but basically what it represents is exactly that, what from our point of view is necessary, for instance, for a real estate developer or an investor. So what are the key performance indicators of that building itself? What is the ratio between the greenhouse? What is the ratio between the additional functions along the food supply chain within the building? On the left side, this is an analysis of projects what you all know. It's Sky Greens in Singapore, Painton Zoo, Vertical Harvest, and the never built Plantagon in Sweden. And we set up 3 different typological studies where we try to increase this cultivation area per cubic meters, always in comparison with the greenhouse. And I skipped that and would like to conclude with Horizon 2020 project where we're involved in, and this is a more holistic view on that, with the key question in to what extent actually vertical farming can contribute to additional goals like the integration of nature-based solutions, blue-green solutions, public health and well-being. To conclude with one of my favorite quotes, utopia is no longer ideal, it's reality's potential to be tested, implemented and developed. Thank you very much.
So there's a saying that today's world is maybe an ideal world for idealists. So people who have dreamed to be big dreams, and now it's no better times for idealists who want to be having your business model, but is that true? So that's actually turning back to our realist, Mike. First introduce yourself and then we can ask your comment.
Okay, I'm Mike Vermeij, I'm CEO of Bomb Group. Bomb Group is a greenhouse project company realizing full turnkey greenhouse projects all over the world, and has been active as of 1966, so already 56 years in the world. And the majority, almost all the projects that we do are glass greenhouse projects in every climate zone, in every part of the world. And the main reason why we do that is because with a structure, and we will discuss later what is a structure and what's needed, with a structure it's possible to control the climate in whatever ambient climate, in whatever climate zone, in whatever part of the world, to be able to produce what you would like to produce there locally, to supply people for food. And definition of food in the discussion about vertical farming, about optimization, is one of the parts that I would like to discuss with you. This is an example, a schedule that has been, I think I've taken away the date, but this is already, I believe, 6 years old, 5 years old, where is a comparison on cultivation technologies, where you can see from your left to the right, if you have traditional open field, then you have a lot of water that you need, you have no energy that you need, you have a relatively low production, and the more you invest in technology, the more you are able to produce. You have to use energy, you have to use technology, but you can produce way more and you use less water. So what's more important, energy or water? Current pricing, energy is expensive, but water is maybe even more expensive, and going to be more and more expensive once we are further growing. On the far right, you will see a vertical farm, plant factory. And for ones that are sharp, you can see no tomatoes in there. Why? Maybe good for a discussion. Vertical farms, most of the times, are greeny leaves. Lettuce, herbs, green leaves, and lettuce. No tomatoes, no cucumbers, no bell peppers, no eggplants, no corn, no wheat, no rice. Isn't it possible? Yes, it's possible. Is it done? No, it's not done. Why not? Because it's not economically feasible, or because it's not easy to do, to handle. Vertical farms are ideal to have on a small service inside a building, parking lot, but even inside a greenhouse. To have on a small footprint a lot of layers of production of green leaves. Short cycle, nobody has to touch it. You can do it almost everywhere. That's true. But in my honest opinion, personal opinion, also a little bit of a business opinion, it's very hard to feed the world with lettuce. So we also need other stuff. But also it's very hard to feed the whole world with tomatoes. That's also impossible. So we also need corn. We also need rice. We also need wheat. So my basic standard point is we cannot solve the world's food problem by vertical farming or indoor farming. We don't have enough buildings to live in, so we don't have enough buildings also to grow lots of greeny leaves. Greenhouses are also not the solution. Open field is also not the solution. It's way too costly for water. So what we propose and what we're discussing with customers is that the future solution for food is trying to optimize the combination between open field, controlled environmental agriculture, and a part of that controlled environmental agriculture is vertical farming. So there is no one solution. First things we have to do is another discussion: stop waste, B&C quality is good, stop pollution, biological crop protection. That's easier in a controlled environment. That's difficult in open field. So either hydroponic, aeroponic, a greenhouse or vertical farm, that is something we need to promote. As local as possible. So if we need to do it within the city, we don't have a lot of food space or footprint. So on the roof of a building, it's nice, but it's small. You cannot feed a city. So we have to do something outside of the city also. Eat less meat. Nothing to do with the subject, but it will help enormously. And if you are thinking in solutions, do not think only in cubicle meters or in square meters, but think in a combination of it. So there is no one solution. For every region, every metropole, for every climate zone, there is its own solution. And that's what we try to discuss. And if your solution is a good vertical farm, then we would love to consult it to you, but that's something that we don't supply. But let's have the discussion.
Yes. Thank you, Mike. Indeed, the floor is already open. From now, if you feel the need for answering the question and joining debate, just raise your hand. And then I would also like to ask already feedback, because Mike, you're basically critical of the current vertical farming business that's also understandable, valid point. Also that indeed you need a combination solutions, but is this industry moving to that direction to learn from each other? Are you, for example, offering, or yourself or other consortia, trying to offer this range of solutions from the intensive horticulture, agroparks, to smaller scale, to city center vertical farming, that where they can work kind of in synergy, where you save land and those land can be used for reforestation, for example. That's kind of circular thinking you need, right? Otherwise, indeed, you still remain fragmented.
You're asking a couple of questions to each
sorry.
other. No problem. Am I critical on vertical farming? No, I think I'm realistic. Because I do think vertical farming is a solution for a certain problem, for a certain production, and the technology that is already available in vertical farming is also a showcase that you can use it also in the more traditional ones, in the high-tech controlled environmental agriculture, in a greenhouse or in a large building. So I'm not critical that vertical farming is not part of our future. It is part of our future. It is even a part of our future innovations that we might need to apply in businesses that we think too traditional in.
Yes.
But I like to discuss that eventually it's the whole picture. And we are facing also other discussions with housing, with cities that are expanding and growing. And in the big cities all around the world, not comparable with anything here in the Netherlands, where it is even very difficult to get a truck inside the city center. For those locations, it's logical to try to have some of the production locally. But then it should be short cycle crops where you don't need to have knowledge, you don't need a grower's hands with green fingers. Because if you want to grow tomatoes inside a city, a grower can have 10, 20 hectares to oversee and to cultivate. What is he going to do with 300 square meters of tomatoes on the rooftop of a building? You don't have a grower to do that, and the crop lives for nine months. So that is a solution. It's technically possible. We can send people to the moon. We can even cultivate fruits and vegetables on the moon if we want to. Technically it's possible, but is it wise to do so? We need to do it and try it to learn, but we need to apply it in a realistic way. And in the pre-words that we had, I get a little bit itchy when I see all kinds of pictures of skyscrapers with all greens on the outside, and I think it's a nice picture, but it's not realistic. And if it would be realistic, who are you going to hang on a rope to harvest lettuce every 3-4 weeks, 150 meters down? Trees in the city, yes, but production of food is meaning hygienic, meaning there has to be clean, otherwise you don't eat it. So that in combination with existing building, then it needs to be a controlled environment where you are cultivating food, and there are rules and regulations, and that they don't show in a drawing.
I would like to turn to Renko, because TTA is a traditional horticulture-based company, but recent years you have dramatically increased your indoor farming ambition. Mm-hmm. So how do you see this? You are stepping into the world, kind of. So.
Yeah. Now, as I stated earlier, we see the problems the world faces. I totally agree with Mike that vertical farming is not it doesn't solve the problem on itself, but it can contribute to solving the problem. I think you need to make it profitable, and not only it's profitable economical wise, but also can you handle the volumes that is necessary to face those challenges. And putting a greenhouse on a rooftop or using an existing building and make some grow cells in it will contribute a little bit, maybe in a niche, or it can educate people living in the city to be more aware of where your food comes from, but it doesn't solve the problem on its own as well. So people always think of urban farming as getting a farm into the city, but I would more like to see more farms to connect to the city. So you have a residue heat in a farm, for example, and you heat houses with it. Or you use empty rooftops to use for solar panels to make the energy to operate the farm. Because you can have a small farm on an empty rooftop, but a lot of empty rooftops you cannot automate, so it's dramatic to operate those farms. If you use the rooftops for solar panels, for example, to operate one dedicated building for the production, then I think you incorporate urban farms in cities, so urban farming, but not in the way the more idealistic approaches, which is nice, I guess, because it's building awareness, and it drives a force. Because without the ideas of a vertical farm or urban farming, people from the horticulture industry would never have stepped into it, for example. So it's a great accelerator, but I think the solution lies a little bit in a different way.
Dan, you want to respond? also representing a lot of newcomers into the urban farming, vertical farming world.
Yeah, of course I can't agree. Yeah, for me the big question is when I see the discussions which actually really changed after Brexit, COVID, real estate developers, project developers and so on, whether it's an already existing building, what I tried to show, or whether it's the development of a whole urban, talking about urban design, mixed use, like that what we did before 1929, yeah, where actually the city is a mix or it's a condensation of different functions, yeah. And the big question is, there is a building no longer in use, perhaps tearing it down, rebuilding it, meeting new building standards, it's way too expensive, or you don't get finance because of all the embodied energy, building materials, etc., etc. Yeah. For me, the big question is, and that's what I would like to find a solution to facilitate this process. Yeah, in terms, not just in terms of knowledge, but also in terms of technology, but technology in the meaning of building envelopes, industrial elements, of that what actually gets used in conventional greenhouse industry, and so how to combine these technical elements in order to make it really feasible, to really activate a very specific part of the city for food production. We once made a theoretical calculation, so it's very theoretical, but it was interesting that there is a skyscraper in the center of Vienna, 76 meters high. Building volume is around 16,000 cubic meters. Yeah. We said, okay, we change our diet completely, we go vegan. Yeah. How many buildings do we need actually to make Vienna autarkic? It was 14,000 skyscrapers. By the very end of that, it sounds a lot. It's just 8% of the whole building volume in Vienna. So coming back to that is, when I'm walking through GreenTech and when I see what actually is possible, is feasible, etc., how to combine that into, or to make architecture out of it. Yeah, I totally agree. I understand that because we have the numbers, yeah, we have the values. Of course, if you have 300 or 400 square meters of a rooftop and you want to grow your own tomatoes, yeah, let's do it. But you need a different business model. Yeah. Or the other thing in the Horizon 2020 project, what we are currently discussing, we have 4 cities, so Gladsaxe, so by the end it's Copenhagen, yeah, Lodz, Piraeus and Belgrade, where the intention of the municipality in bringing vertical farming into the city, it's all around public health, well-being, nature-based solutions, blue-green solutions. So perhaps with a public-private partnership for the beginning of as an incentive or to start this investment, perhaps that also could be a solution or the way in the right direction.
I think that because you ask, how can we make a business model out of integrating it into a city? And my first question would be, why do you want to integrate it into a city? Because I totally agree on there are people.
Can I interrupt immediately to speed that up? It's a synergy potential. If you're combining a greenhouse, a verticalized greenhouse with offices, residential, etc., in terms of the energy and the material flows, you already have an additional value of that. Synergy potentials in terms of energy efficiency.
I can imagine that if you look at feasibility, I think it stops right there, because I understand that it's crazy to grow a crop of lettuce or a kilo of tomatoes in California and drive it all the way to New York. But the Westland area here in Holland had the same function already. We have the Randstad in Holland, so a very dense area with a lot of people, but also in the complete west of Europe. And the Westland area provided food for its direct surroundings. That is urban farming on its own already. You don't need really to put it in a building next to an office building. We did it already. So in terms of bringing food closer to where it's consumed, totally agree. I doubt if it will be necessary to put it in the same building or attached to the same buildings. In terms of education, because I know a lot of children growing up in cities now not knowing where their foods come from. They don't know, they think a salad is made in a factory, for example. Well, we're coming close towards that already, but so it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, I guess. But I can see that you want to educate, you want to mix certain things, but as a business case for food production, I doubt if that's feasible.
So it needs a different way of thinking about business case.
Yeah.
So purely from food production, that still remains a long way to go, because you can never compete with free energy from sunlight, for example, right?
Yeah, and I think if I add, again, there is no one solution. There's multiple solutions, and together they are the solution for the future. Vertical farming within a city is a good showcase. It's a good pressurized way to get innovation done, to show what's possible. And if you want to then make it feasible, you have to find items that you can make it feasible or more efficient on. And in the majority of all technologies, that's mainly been done by scalability. You have, it's very difficult and very expensive to make your house self-sufficient in energy. It's easier to make a big part of a city self-sufficient, but then still, if it's all using the same kind of energy or the same kind of main resources, then it's difficult to make it self-sufficient. So the best thing to do, and I believe investors and customers want to do that, if it's possible to make use of waste heat or other energy sources that are near me, and there are factories not within the city, but on the outskirts of the city. There are producers of energy, users of energy, and the most feasible is find a location near a city, and you will have kind of a copy of the Netherlands. We produce here a lot, and 80% of what we produce here we export up until 1,000, 1,200 kilometers. Every big city, wherever in the world, if you go 15, 20 kilometers outside of the city, you then have also factories, you have space, you have all kinds of resources. There, a vertical farm, not in a building, but in a building that you create relatively cheap on cheap ground, can be very, very, very efficient. And a couple of years ago, I've tried together with Tom to build a vertical farm in a parking garage of the IKEA. Is it possible? Yes, it's possible. Does it give a lot of education and clearance on what is possible? Yes, it would be humongous. Will it be profitable? No. But it's also a part of education, it's a part of development, and we are working on bigger projects where we have a part of the production, pre-production or leafy greens being done in a vertical farm, not within the city, but in a location that's easy for logistics, easy for storage, but also for energy resources. And I believe that that is a big part of the future. And if we find ways to have long cycle crops like tomatoes, cucumbers, peppers, and we can do that in a vertical farm also, but think in a different way. So no 9-month cycle, but 8 weeks, 10 weeks, and then you buy it, you put it on your shelf in your kitchen, and you pick the tomatoes, and after 3-4 weeks, like with the herbs, you buy a new one. That's also possible in a vertical farm.
Yes.
Then it can be feasible. That's the same principle of food, but then defined in another way. And I believe then you need scalability, then you need automation. And I believe it's better than trying to get a green building on the outside by putting plants on it.
Thank you, Mike. I think that's one thing is also true. You said very well that you need business model, new business models, and looking at integrate ways to capture different value. But one thing is also true, the world is changing very fast. What is unthinkable a short time ago becomes thinkable. So that's also important to keep the dialogue, and then I think the spectrum between realists and idealists are getting closer, so that when they work together, then probably we can find really innovative solutions. With that, I'd like to invite any comments from the audience. Questions? Yes, please.
So if it's focused about business model just for producing, of course you go outside the city near a distribution center. Why would you go inside, near the consumer, near, well, the general public? Putting it simply, for the well-being benefits, biophilic benefits, or even more plainly, because it's a cool technology, it's making it, well, understandable to the public. There are two ways you could approach it then. Say it's a complete business model, so by having the larger scale production and as a sort of, well, understanding little grow module within the city, and it's rather the large scale production that sort of finances the city structure. Or is there still a way through using sustainability well-being certificates or another way to have a business model for just the grow module or vertical farm within the city? Because that was already part of the discussion there. Could you elaborate on?
You asking for specific?
Not necessarily. I mean, I thought it was interesting.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I can answer. Yes, there is room for business models like that in a city. There are possibilities to have individual modules, small, big, that you can put at home on your balcony or in your kitchen, and you can grow. And you grow the same lettuce, but by an app you sell them to your neighbor, and he's getting the lettuce from you for €1 instead of from the Albert Heijn from 75 euro cents. That's a possible model. For every customer there's a market, and for every production way that you want to do it, there's a model. But it will not be the answer for the main public. But there is a model like that. There is a market for companies that are supplying you complete meals in a cardboard box. That's also for a part of the people. That's a business model. They are willing to pay for it. It's cheaper to go to the Albert Heijn or to the supermarkets, to the existing retail. Retail will change in the upcoming 10, 15 years. It's already changing. So is there a business model? Yes, but you have to think on it. And is it up to investors? Is it up to companies? Or is it up to individuals? And are you willing to buy for €1 a piece of lettuce from Piet, who's living next door, who you don't know what he's doing, what he's putting in? If maybe that needs time, maybe that needs certificates, maybe that needs modules. But then again, efficiency-wise, individual modules. To grow something, you need energy, you need light, and we still believe that even today, if you look outside, there's a lot of light, there's a lot of free energy. The most efficient one is use energy that's for free, as much as possible. And whatever energy we don't have to produce in another way is always helping another business case. So is there a business case? Yes, there are plenty to think about. Is it large scale, small scale? There's no one solution.
Thank you, Mike. Any other comments? I think we are about, okay, last comment, then we have to wrap up the session.
Hi.
Oh. There's another one, but go ahead.
Hi, I just wanted to introduce myself. I work for a company called FarmShelf. We actually do make such a modular solution. And we do believe there is a business model for it, and it will grow. It's not exactly as you've described, as you sell to Pete, your neighbor. We haven't thought about that.
Free tip.
But you're right, it's a certain market. Right now we work mostly with customers who demand a certain quality that you can only grow in controlled environment agriculture, namely restaurants. And herbs is something that's very important to them, for which they're willing to pay a premium. But there's other things you get with on-site growing that you can't get elsewhere. There is no retail. There's no retail price. There's no shipping. It's a completely different model, if you really think about it. It's not exactly comparable one-to-one with growers, because there is no retail at all. So just wanted to add that. It does exist. and
It
invite
is
you
a
all to-
complete rethink of the business model, not just what you grow, but really thinking how the value is captured and also the whole story. We can have another last remark. The gentleman over there, the back. Yes.
Okay, thank you. I agree with Mr. Van Meij. We are operating 2 parks in ABC Westland and 1 in Venlo. And what you see in ABC Westland, there is a vertical farm company. We have some interest also in Venlo from American and German companies, because we are logistic hubs, food hubs, and there is everything is there. So for transport, we are making things ready also for hydrogen trucks, electric trucks for the future. You need those hubs, because for us, we are distributing for North Rhine-Westphalia, which is really a big city of 20 million people. It's just 100 kilometers from us to be in the middle there. So that's also local for local, but you need those hubs close to the big metropolitans to distribute, and there are good locations for vertical farming. Not for special business models probably, but for big ones, yes.
Thank you. Great. On that remark, thank you very much for joining us. Great discussion. Thank you for the attention. And now I think the conversation and debate need to continue.
Keep discussing.
Yes. Thank you very much.